Hi folks, it's Morpheus with you, and this video I'm going to show you how to utilize ZBrush Grid to adjust your modeler scale, and we're going to match the grid to a real engine, and also we'll be able to kind of snap to the, I'll show you how to snap to the grid and directly export your asset to a real engine without need to kind of scale it up in Unreal or send it to other software. Why would you use ZBrush? Well, it's really powerful. It has powerful modeling tools. Since the introduction of ZModeler, the folks at Pixelogic have been just working really hard, adding more functionalities and making it just really awesome. I've actually stopped using Maya for environmental and prop modeling, or even creating the base meshes. I've just switched completely to ZBrush. Especially if you're gonna create your details in ZBrush or the high poly there, it's just more efficient to do it all there. You still see people use other software to create the low poly and then send it to ZBrush and add details and then send it back to Maya or whatever to optimize it. It's just time consuming, and honestly, just if you kind of make yourself familiar with all these brilliant modeling tools, you'll just be amazed. Yeah, so these are the aims, so let's just get cracking then. Okay, so let's switch to Real Engine. I have the mannequin here. If you do level design or environment modeling, probably used to kind of get character reference to kind of use as a guide for creating your world. I used to do that in Maya, and even in ZBrush, just export the mannequin or import the mannequin and then start modeling with that in mind. Quickly, if we go there, yeah, so the this is Unreal Engine Grid, so you can see it's made of small boxes and big boxes. So each small box is 10 by 10 centimeters or Unreal Engine units, and the big one is 10 boxes, so it's 100 by 100 or 1 by 1 meter. So you can see that the character is around 18 to 19 small boxes. So we're gonna aim to do that in ZBrush. So ZBrush has its own units, which is basically millimeters. So if we drop a star here, initialize it, make Q cube, and if you go to deformation, unify, it will auto resize it. So if you click hold control, explain what unify is. So if you click that, it'll basically just set the bounding box to be 2 by 2 by 2, regardless of what the subtool is. And if you go to geometry size, you'll see it's 1.999, which is basically 2 by 2 by 2. ZBrush is optimized to kind of work with this kind of dimensions. So if you go to the brush size, set it to max, which is 1000, so you can see that it covers the whole box. If you, however, increase the size of this to say 30 and zoom out, that's the maximum brush size. Look how tiny it looks. So you're going to have to go to brush settings and adjust the size. So rather than having to work with the real world scale within ZBrush, just stick to ZBrush Units, set it to 1 by 1 by 1 or 2 by 2 by 2, and then I'll show you how to kind of sort it out before exporting it to Unreal Engine 4. Okay, so if you go to, we're going to drop a Polymesh 3D, T to go to edit mode, initialize, set the resolution 1 by 1 by 1, and then click on Q cube. So we have our cube, control or shift F to go to poly mode, polyframe mode, control W to polygroup. Okay, so the size of this box, to set that, if you go to geometry size, as you can see, it's 0.4, which is basically ZBrush Units, which is basically 0.4 millimeters. So if you set that to 1, click enter twice to set the XYZ to 1. So now it is 1 by 1 by 1 millimeters. So if you go to floor, there you go. So as you can see, it's two grid boxes, so each grid box basically is 0.5 ZBrush unit. So in order to adjust the grid and to kind of use it for basically as a guide, if you go to draw palette and then let's drag it there. So what I like to do is I like to set the frame opacity to max so that you can see it well, and the zero out the RGB frame and RGB fill. Okay, so that's kind of grayish, so it's kind of matches Maya's or 3ds Max and other modeling softwares. You can also set the fill mode to 0 to become transparent, or 3 to be kind of grayish. I like to set it to 2, just kind of in between. And now to set the grid kind of dimensions, so if you want each grid box equals 1 unit, 1 by 1 by 1, make sure that the grid size and the tiles are the same number, because if you increase the grid size on its own, the tiles will just remain the same. So right now the tiles are set to 6, which is the default. If you set the size to 6 as well, now the grid size and tiles are kind of matching the actual box size. Now as you can see, the box is kind of in the center, is not quite snapped, so it'll be difficult to snap it. So what you need to do is, if you go to move tool W and then hold while holding alt, alt will kind of allow you to kind of adjust the pivot. If you hold alt and then just click on one of the vertices where you want the pivot to be, and just click there, it'll just move it to there, and then hold alt again and then click on the reset orientation. It will reset it so that the y-axis will be up, and then lastly just click on the mesh to axis and that will just pop it there. Okay, so basically now it's set to 0, 0, 0 position, which you should always do if you are exporting your final product to or mesh to a real engine, because to make it easy, your life easier basically. Okay, so now we're going to export this to Unreal, but if you export it just now, it's going to be really tiny because the size is only 1 millimeter. So basically, if you imagine that this is a real engine grid, this box will be like this tiny. Okay, so in order to be able to kind of to match it to Unreal Engine boxes, you need to match the grid to Unreal Engine. So there are two ways. If you basically scale this up by 10, it will be the right size, but it's going to be off this grid. So a better way of doing this is by adjusting the scale. So right now each grid box equals 1 unit, so we want to make it equals 10 units. So the way you do that is by going to the export setting. Now the scale is set to 0, so obviously if you want it to be 10, so just set the scale to 10. Okay, so now if you check the size of this box, as I mentioned, it was 1 by 1 by 1. If you switch to the move tool and then go to the transpose and then drag it, it's going to be 9 by 9 by 9.999 units, which is basically 10 units. Okay, so remember it was 1, now it's 10. It's because we've set the scale there. Okay, to prove that, we're going to send this to Unreal and check it on Unreal Engine's grid. So if you go to Z plugins, let's drag that there. FBX exporter, I think usually set to visible, so I'm just going to set selected, and make sure that the axis is set to Maya Y up, and then click export. It's gonna, I've already done this, so we'll call it test box and then export it. Now we'll go to a real engine, import that. There's a test box. Okay, so we don't need generate collisions, we don't need texture, so just import. So there is the box. If you click there, so it's the same size of the small boxes. Okay, So if you look again at the approximate size is 9 by 9 by 9. Why is that? Is because in ZBrush, remember the size was 9.9999, so yeah, RL Engine rounds that to 9, which is, yeah, stupid. I mean, it should be 10, but anyways, so don't worry about that. It's basically gonna snap, so if you have modular assets, you can easily snap them there. First of all, if you want to, like, say if I'm modeling a prop or a room or a building and I know the dimensions of it, so I usually reset the grid to match it to make things easier, so rather than having to kind of measure things every few minutes. So the way to do this, you can just go to draw. As I mentioned, you can just reset it here. I personally have the grid size and tiles here, so I can just basically change it here. So if I know if I'm modeling a room and I know the dimensions are 2 by 2 meters, so just set it 20 by 20. Because remember, each box is 10 units, so 10 by 20, that is basically 2 meters. So yeah, so in order to have this, basically you need to do this. If you want to have easy access like this, you can basically customize your interface by going to preferences, enable customize, and then you can hold Control and Alt and drag literally anything, any box, any here. So you can just drag the tiles here and just let go. It's going to be there. If you want to remove it, just hold Alt and Control and just drag it there, and then now it's gone. Once you're done with that, just go to preferences, click enable customize, disable it, and then you can just either store it or save it. So if you've used 3ds Max or Maya or any other model software, most of them will have like the option of snapping to the grid. Unfortunately, this is not something that you can do in ZBrush, but I'll show you ways of doing that. For example, in Maya, if you wanna, if you select for the vertices and go to the move tool, you can basically just move them, and if you hold X, it'll snap there. It doesn't here. You can see the number, so it tells you, like, you know, how many millimeters or centimeters, but you can't snap. The trick is basically hold Shift, and it can kind of mini snap. It's not gonna snap to the grid, but it'll make your life easier to kind of match it to the grid. So as long as it's an integer, like, you know, 1 means it's one box. If you want 2 boxes, so that's basically 20 centimeters. So it's going to be the total length will be 30. If you want to have a bit of snapping, so if you go back, and we'll do this again. If you just hold Control and Alt and then pick this bit and switch back. If you hold Control and then drag and hold Shift as well, Shift will snap it, and once you get to 1, let go of Control. So if you want resolution every 10 units, let's stop at 1, let go of Control, and then just keep dragging, and this will kind of create a box or an edge. If you want it every 2 boxes, then again just hold Control and drag, and then hold Shift as well, so Control and Shift, and then once you get to 2, let go of Control and then just keep dragging, and there you go. Okay, another way of doing it is using ZModeler. So if you go to brushes, ZModeler, and if you go to highlight one of the faces, the one that you want to extrude, and then it's defaulted to QMesh, which I prefer, but I'll show you that later. Let's use Transpose. So if you go to Transpose, single poly, and then click on a face, and then you're basically going to do the same thing. So if you you can just start dragging. If you hold Control and Shift and then drag, and once you're at 1, again, if you find yourself struggling to get to 1, basically just zoom in and then repeat the process, and now you can do this. Now once you're at 1, let go of Control and just keep dragging, and then you'll be able to do this. Okay, you can do the same Now here, if you just highlight this face, Control Shift, let's say I want an edge every two boxes, then let go now, and then drag, and now you have this there. Okay, so that's another way of doing it. The way I do it, I use QMesh. So if you again, ZModeler, go to faces and go to QMesh. QMesh is basically one of the most powerful modeling tools in ZBrush. It's literally extrude on steroids. I'm not going to cover QMesh like in details here. I'll just show you how I use it in this kind of workflow, but it is a brilliant tool. Basically, you can just extrude faces like this, do that, and you can then snap them and stuff like that, remove them easily, stuff like that. Okay, so if you just use extrude with the default setting, you won't be able to snap, and obviously you don't even have kind of the number down there that tells you, you know, how many units you move. In fact, if you hold shift while doing this, it'll basically just change to move, and if you hold control, it'll just extract faces. So the way to do it is you just need to change only one thing. So keep it QMesh single poly. This doesn't actually matter. So rather than under the modifiers, change the one side poly to step size and maximize the step size to 1. Okay, so as long as you have a 1 by 1 by 1 box, you can just drag this. So it's literally snapping to the grid. So it's dragging just 1 unit boxes. How is that? So now you're snapping to the grid, so you can literally create a room within a second. So if you just drag this, and then if you know obviously the size, just drag that, and then just tap here, tap there, tap there. There you go. And then you can just go to QMesh, flat border, and drag this up, and now you can just make the door. There you go, door, window, and QMesh it. Oh, I think we've picked. We need to change it to single poly. There you go. That's a room. Like, how cool was that? You can just take this to Minecraft, and yeah. So, and to measure it, it's so rather than having to measure how many boxes, you can just use the Transpose tool, and then just drag. So there it is, 139, 140 centimeters. So you know this is 140 by 140. Okay, so yeah, that's that. Now looking at this mesh, you might say, oh my god, look at this crappy Minecraft looking building, not even building, just walls. How many polygons? 814. What? That's a lot of polygons for this. Well, there is that's the bonus bit. If you go to geometry and go to edge loop, there is delete loop here, delete loops here. If you change from group to partial and then click delete loops, just watch the number of polygons there. So click 98. This is a brilliant kind of function. It literally looks at the model and delete all unnecessary loops, keeps only the ones that need to keep the silhouette or the shape of that. Obviously you can adjust this. It's more complex or more sophisticated than just this, but this is really great. So now 98 faces. If you don't need usually the top and bottom faces, so if you highlight this and then go to geometry, modify topology, delete hidden, and then go back there, choose the bottom ones, invert selection, and delete hidden. Now we're down to 75. If we go back to delete loops. Now we're down to 51. Okay, if you want to see the kind of these faces, if you go to display property and set it to double, you'll be able to see this. So now we have only 51. So we went from 814 to 51. Okay, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, folks, and hopefully I'll do more videos to kind of go in depth with this workflow. Thanks.